Whoops. Let's see here. Oh, not too much. Okay. All right. This is the vlog for October 18th, 2018, and Soulcalibur VI is good. I mean, it's great. I've only okay. It's a little early to be giving my full appreciation or verdict, even review style of this game, but let me put it to you this way: Soul Calibur 5 was a big step forward in a lot of ways. It improved the speed and flow of the game over Soul Calibur 4. It fixed a lot of long-standing issues, but it still upset a lot of people. A lot of things were removed. Characters that were too close to other characters or were considered to have too complicated of move sets, whether removed completely or had their move sets tweaked. Dumbed down was the term a lot of people used. For example, the biggest one for me is that Mitsurugi, who's sort of been a flagship character for a long time, was considered the primary character of Soul Blade. Mitsurugi has had, in every game except Soul Calibur 5, 2 additional stances in addition to his normal moves. One was a stance where he essentially stepped forward, and instead of holding the sword out like this, held his arms back in sort of a, I don't know if this is called reverse grip or parallel grip or right angle grip or whatever. But it was sort of the more offensive, like, stance used to chase down people who were trying to dodge backward. And then he had a defensive stance, which was a sort of Iaido stance. Iaido is a form of Japanese swordsmanship where you keep the sword sheathed and draw, attack, remove blood from the blade, and sheathe, ideally in one fluid motion. It's more commonly thought of as being the quick draw style of combat in Japanese sword fighting, and is heavily played up in video games and mythology. Swordsmen who could strike down a foe with one hit and sheathe their sword before their opponent's body even hit the ground, that kind of thing. They took away one of his stances in Soul Calibur 5. I believe it was the Iaido stance, which definitely limited him, because the great thing about Mitsurugi is that he was a well-balanced character. He didn't have incredible reach, but he had good movement, so he could fight at short and mid-range, and limitedly at long range very well. And you could play him very offensively, where you're chasing people down and rushing them down, or you could play defensively with that sheathed sword stance, waiting for your opponent to act and then reacting in the best way you saw fit. It was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed playing him, although I wouldn't consider him one of my main characters. But he's a very good barometer for the overall experience of the game. So once I had the game installed and got back from having some drinks, I started arcade mode, played through on normal difficulty with Mitsurugi, and I lost a match or two along the way, but in general, it was a fun romp all the way to the top. Now, I'm really glad they gave back his stance, both of his old stances, but he's definitely not playing exactly the way he used to. And part of that is because none of the characters currently play exactly the way they used to. And the big thing there is throws. So, there are generally 4 buttons on the arcade version of Soul Calibur. One is the A button for horizontal attacks, the B button for vertical attacks, the K button for kick attacks, and the G button for guarding. And all the moves in the game are the result of a combination of those buttons, or a button and a controller input, or multiple buttons and a controller input. And grabbing has generally been divided into 4 major groups: front throws, side throws, back throws, and command throws. Front throws are divided into 2 categories. There's one front throw that you used to do by pressing the A and G buttons at the same time, and another throw that you did by pressing the B and G buttons at the same time. In the arcade, that's very easy. Generally, you do A grabs by pressing these 2 fingers down, and you do B grabs by pressing these 2 fingers down. So they're very easy to do with one hand without having to do any sort of finger aerobics. On a controller, though, with all the buttons arranged in a diamond pattern instead of a slow curved line like they are in the arcade, it becomes very hard to get your thumb to press both B and G at the same time. So most people map those commands to the shoulder buttons. And that's what I did, because when I went to check the controller defaults, the old default of A and G plus B and G being on the shoulder buttons was not there, which I thought was sort of weird, but I mapped them out anyway. So imagine my surprise when I get into the game and B and G don't actually do anything. Well, that's not true. They do something. They just don't do the B grab anymore. So I did a little more looking in one of the rounds when I was very confused by this. And now it seems that all of the front throws in the game are done by either pressing A and G at the same time, or back and A and G at the same time, or forward and A and G at the same time. Mitsurugi is a little bit weird because he has 3 throws now, one with A and G, one back A and G, and one forward A and G, and I don't know which ones correspond to his old moveset. So that's going to take a little bit of experimentation and training mode, I'm sure, to figure out how all that stuff now works. I also wasn't able to do guard impacts or guard reversals the way I've classically been able to do that, which is either forward and guard or back and guard. So those must have some sort of new command to do them as well. But the good news is the game's quote-unquote super moves are very easy. You just press A, B, and K at the same time, and you spend a full meter to do a super powerful move. It's sort of an auto combo. It's what you would call a super combo in a lot of other fighting games, mostly 2D fighting games. But they feel great. They look great. They're excellent finishing moves if you can catch the opponent off guard. And they're very easy to block if you see them coming. If you know that your opponent is desperate and they're likely to try and use that move, you can probably fake them out into using it and then blocking it. Although I'm sure some of them are designed to be used where the opponent's been knocked into the air and thus presents an easy target. Those were always my favorites in Soulcalibur V. But I don't want to keep talking about it. I want to go back and play it. It's that good. It's so fun. I haven't had a game that's made me feel like this since Monster Hunter World. It's just so excited. I'm so glad that it's fun and I'm having fun and it looks great and it feels great. It's going to have some weird things that I'm going to have to get used to. I don't know if I'd call them flaws as of yet, but I'll get back to that tomorrow. I'm sure I'll be gushing about this game all week. So, until then, I'm Eric Spornitz, and tomorrow will be better.